Scene 1, take 26. That every time... Emma, what the fuck? Don't walk across the camera. Oh my god.
I wanna hear you say it. Don't wanna need to rephrase. I wanna hear you say it. Don't wanna need to rephrase.
Alright, so cafe racers, what are they? You know muscle cars? They're basically the muscle car equivalent to motorcycles. Alright, so let's go way back, okay? It is the 1920s in England, and yes, they had motorcycles, like they existed, but they didn't serve like a purpose. So you'd walk up to somebody in the 1920s and like try and explain to them the concept of a motorcycle that was just designed to go as fast as possible, and they'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? So today we have like different kinds of like motorcycles. You have sport bikes that are designed to go like as fast as possible. And then you have cruisers like Harleys that are designed to be as comfortable as possible so you can ride them as long as possible. And then you have tricycles. I don't even know why the fuck we have those, actually. Okay, so back then, motorcycles, to them, motorcycles were just an engine with two wheels. Like, and it served there was no purpose in its design. The engineering there was no reason behind it. It was just an engine with two wheels that just went, it just go. There was no purpose behind its design other than to be a bicycle that you didn't have to pedal.
Now it's like I'm on a mission, headed everywhere. And if it takes a little long and it feels a little wrong.
The concept of a motorcycle designed to go just as fast as possible, it didn't exist. It wasn't invented yet.
Someone stare when he dances, I can hardly breathe. Someone call a doctor.
And then World War I happened. Okay, now this is important because all British manufactured motorcycles stopped production. Millions of them went straight to the army. The army didn't have like the internet or cell phones, and communication in war was vital. So what they ended up doing was to give orders from all these troops everywhere, they had guys send these letters on a motorcycle. So that was how they got orders and communication around the battlefield. A guy with paper on the back of a motorcycle. That was it. England is creating millions of these army motorcycles, and by the end of World War I and World War II, they were useless. England had these massive stockpiles of just millions of these unused army motorcycles. You could literally buy them, like in today's money, probably for like $100. You could not spit in England without it landing on 3 of these things. So it's now the late 1940s, and you have this new generation of Britain's youth. Rock and roll was on the rise, so this rebellious youth full of teenage angst really gravitated towards that, and now all they wanted to do was just rebel and be hooligans.
Let's go! Aye! Oh! Let's go! Aye! Oh! Let's go! Aye! Oh! Let's go!
And at the time, this movie came out called The Wild One.
Going through a tight one. Keep the listen to mine. Let's speak up.
And it was about this reckless renegade delinquent and his biker gang. And then something amazing happened.
10 guys like that give people the idea everybody drives a motorcycle is crazy. What are they trying to prove anyway?
So see, at the time, the public did not have a stereotype for these bikers, for people who rode motorcycles. At the time, you saw someone on a motorcycle and you just thought, oh, that's a guy who rides a motorcycle and that's it. But this movie, when it came out, it it changed that. It changed the public's opinion on anybody who rides a motorcycle. It permanently implanted in the public eye that bikers were criminals, they were bad dudes, they were just delinquents up to no good. But to the youth of Britain that was fueled by rock and roll and just rebelliousness, and for them it showcased an icon. And it painted an image for what reckless rebelliousness should look and act like. And it was on a motorcycle. So now you have this new generation of rebellious, angsty, and impressionable youth coked up on rock and roll music that got inspired by the delinquent biker character from The Wild One, and they're surrounded by these old World War II motorcycles by the millions that cost like $100. What do you think's gonna happen? So now Britain's rebellious youth had got their hands on motorcycles. At the time, there was this race called the Isle of Man TT. And it's a race located on an island off the coast of England called Isle of Man. And it's a race course made up of the public roads in that island. The TT portion stands for Tourist Trophy, which means anybody can just come in, sign up, and just race. My point is that those racers were called TT racers. So now you have this generation of rebellious youth coked up on rock and roll with motorcycles. So there was a problem. The old World War II motorcycles that this rebellious youth generation bought, they were slow. And with motorcycles being all of the craze back then, the premier idol for these young bikers were the TT racers. And these TT racers were going fast as shit. So this new generation who started riding motorcycles wanted their bikes to be just as fast as the TT racers' bikes. But they spent all of their money to buy that slow-ass bike. And they couldn't afford newer bikes, but they also couldn't afford to modify their bike to make it go faster. How do you make a slow motorcycle go faster without spending any money? See, they thought the same thing, and then someone had an idea. To make their bikes go faster without spending any money, they made their bikes lighter. So what these kids were doing was they were taking off of the bike anything that wasn't necessary to the functionality of the motorcycle itself. And it sparked this whole movement of minimalism within the motorcycle world. And that movement was called the Cafe Racer movement, the embodiment of speed and minimalism in one. And this movement just exploded. Every youth in Britain who rode a motorcycle were now zipping around town from cafe to cafe in these light, nimble machines, just terrorizing the streets. That is how cafe racers became this cultural phenomenon that changed the world of motorcycles forever. But eventually, cafe racers just kind of stopped being a thing. So back then, you built a cafe racer to have a bike that went as fast as possible. But today, you can just buy a bike that is designed to go as fast as possible for like $2,000 off of Craigslist, and it goes 160 miles an hour. Much like how people have classic vintage cars that have no air conditioning, no power steering, don't have fuel injection, but they still drive those cars because they have character, they have history. So people today still build these cafe racers, but not in the pursuit of speed, but more as an homage to the cafe racer movement and the history behind it. So now that people aren't building these cafe racers anymore for speed, and they're building it more for the character and history behind it, that's when people started getting creative and artistry started coming into play. And today, these bikes they're literally art on two wheels at this point. Now, I know what you're thinking, oh my God, Taylor, motorcycles are not art. Shut the fuck up. Let me explain. Now, art in a long series of connections inspires automotive design, and in turn, that automotive design inspires art. But it begs the question, are these things art? Defining art is something people have been trying to do for centuries. And until around the 18th century, artists have been striving to represent what is real, and to do it in the most realistic way possible. Following that was the Expressionist movement, which was about expressing feelings, stuff that doesn't have a tangible representation. I bring that up because the Expressionists felt that art was anything created with the intent to make you feel. An idea that a lot of people have is that art can't be practical, that it can't serve any other purpose than itself. And since a motorcycle has a function, it can be argued that it can't be art. So art and design were considered two separate fields. But that changed at Bauhaus School of Functional Design in 1919 Germany. Bauhaus believed in uniting art, technology, and design. They wanted creativity and manufacturing to go hand in hand. They were afraid of art losing its place in society, and they taught to bring it back by making things you see every day beautiful. Take the classic wooden chair, for example. It's boring. What the fuck is that? Now, the Bauhaus students thought the same thing. The wooden chair was an art form. It took craftsmanship to build, sure, but the end result was expected just to be sat on. So Bauhaus came up with the cantilever chair and the Vasily chairs. You can sit on these, but the design invoked a sense of modernity and progress. They made the classic chair say something. And that, in the traditional sense, is what art always has and will do. Speak to you. Regardless of your definition of art, it is a universal fact that art is a depiction of someone else's reality. So inherently, art has to be made in some way, shape, or form. You know, take music or film or fashion. All of that is considered art because somebody conceptualized it and made it into a reality. It was made by someone. These bikes, these cafe racers, are literally broken down, built from the ground up, reshaped and redesigned to fit the creator's visualization of their reality. So paintings, books, film, fashion, someone makes those things and they're considered art. Someone makes a cafe racer. What's the difference? Michelangelo spent time planning and chipping away at this piece of marble to create his David, the depiction of how he sees the human body, the human form, with its proportions and lines, invoking you to feel something when you look at it. The same process goes with these cafe bikes. I mean, there is obvious design choices being made when these cafe bikes are being built. And it's definitely a choice because there are cafe bikes out there that make me just want to drink bleach. Okay, like this one. What the fuck is that? It's like, what the hell is that? That looks disgusting. And what makes something art? Is it value? Traditional art doesn't sell for millions because it's rare or because they look pretty. I mean, sure, it plays a big part, but it's about who made that art and why, the context of why it was created. And the same shit goes for cafe racers. They were built by a generation hungry for speed to satiate their curiosity of the unknown. What happens when you go 100 miles an hour. That is what makes these cafe bikes special. And just because something is rare or expensive doesn't make it art. Collectors might treat their bikes like a veneer, but it's not a good enough justification to call these things art. So if the idea of functional art and collectability let these cafe racers flirt with artistry, then there's one concept that really pushes these cafe bikes into real art territory, and that's emotion. Art has always been about conveying the human experience and expressing it through various mediums. The first art drawing in caves was an expression of what early man was experiencing. And even those are considered art. Expressionism is considered art. And in an expressionist sense, motorcycles are the ultimate art piece, especially cafe racers. Yeah, they're functional, but like Bauhaus taught us, function can and should have form. Look at these motorcycles. Its shape, its color. How does it make you feel when you look at it? Lust, aggression, attraction? Maybe it's something else that's indescribable. But regardless, everything about the way it's designed makes you feel something. Oh, Taylor, they can't be art. A company made it, not a single artist. Bullshit! Tons of artists had assistants. Vermeer probably had mechanical assistants, and Warhol definitely had assistants in his work, and that basically makes it okay. The Expressionists believed that art was anything that could make you feel. And Bauhaus believed that anything that had a function could also be art. That's a motorcycle.